Okay, one lonely farmer here. Yeah, me, you know, me. Anyways, on the first video of dropping off the Oliver 1755 to Mr. Jeremy Lee in, well, outside of Mount Pleasant, Iowa, when I broke down, you saw my father's middle finger, his middle finger, and that fingernail that was just so damn nasty. Well, that just leads up to a story. And it's a 15-year-old story. My daughter Haley was born in 1999. She was born in, let's see, when the hell was she born? August. She was August? I get them confused, Joe and Haley, because they're only a year apart, 11 months apart. One was August. Yeah, August. No, she was September 19th. That was hers. Joe was August 30th. So anyways, now that I've discovered and remembered how old they are. Anyways, Haley was born in September, and we were cutting soybeans. It was 1999, so we had a really bad drought that year. We were cutting soybeans, and it kept falling forward in the combine, just falling out on the ground, because they were only 8-10 inches tall. It was just really, really dry. So anyways, what happened was we were adjusting the reel, the height of the reel to the cutter bar. We needed to drop it down, and on the old 972 grain platforms for the New Holland combines, you had to do it with there was a pin, and you would take the pin out, pick up the reel, drop the pin in the next hole. There were several holes in the header. So my job was to pick up the reel, and my dad was to stick his hand in there and put the pin in the holes. Well, it was really heavy for me to hold, so I couldn't hold it. I literally could hardly pick this thing up. So I went into the building and I got a piece of oak, which I should have grabbed a piece of steel, but I got a piece of oak, like an oak 2x4, and I stuck it in the end of that pipe, the end of where the reel is fastened onto, and I picked up the reel. Well, I did that, and Dad took the pin out, and I was to pick it up a little higher, or drop it down a little bit, and he was to put the pin back in a little lower. Well, when I did that, the piece of oak broke. Just snapped, which was amazing, because oak generally is pretty tough stuff. So anyways, when it snapped, the thing came down on his hand and dropped that arm that the reel is attached to down onto the cylinder, and pinched his finger between the arm and the cylinder, severing the tip of his finger almost completely off. Of course, then the reel wasn't very heavy. I grabbed the whole thing, ripped it right up off of his hand, and he pulls it out of his glove, lays it on his other hand, and sure as the Pope's Catholic, it had sheared that thing right at the tip. So, of course, we go and we get in the car, because the truck was going to be too rough of a ride, and it didn't hurt, he said. When I got about 5 miles away from the farm, I asked him if it hurt. He said no. But yeah, he definitely had no blood because it pinched it. And anyways, we go to the emergency room, and they says, well, we could sew it back on, and, you know, it isn't really going to do anything. It may live, it may not live, blah, 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 or we could just cut the thing off. So he said, cut it off. So they did. They cut it off. When they did that, they severed the main artery that went up through the end of that finger. So they could have sewed the damn thing back on, and it probably would have healed up just fine, and he'd have perfect use of his finger. But, of course, he didn't opt for that. So anyways, he ended up almost bleeding to death because they didn't put a stitch in the artery. The bone was sticking out the end of his finger. They didn't trim the bone. They figured, the skin will grow over top of it and it'll be a little longer that way. You'll be fine. Which, it looked like somebody just hacked it off with a kitchen knife and peeled the end of his finger off, and he had this jagged bone sticking out the end. So anyway, so he's bleeding to death here at the farm. And finally, my mom says, that's it, you're going back to the hospital. So they go to the hospital, and they're like, well, what's the problem? And he's like, well, I cut my finger off. Oh, well, you were here already once, right? Yeah, I was here. Says, oh, okay, well, wait in here. So they made him wait, and he's getting paler and paler. He's getting lightheaded now because he's really, literally bleeding to death. So anyways, long story short, they finally, the doctor comes in and looks at it and says, holy shit, well, okay, brings him into another office that had tile floors, no more carpeted floors, and they trim up the bone and they put a stitch in the artery and sent him home. And that's what he got. He got that fingernail to grow over the edge, which it should have been, I guess he should have stuck his finger in there a little farther and it would have cut the cuticle out, and then he wouldn't have that fingernail that looks that way. But yeah, that's the story. I cut my father's finger off about 15 years ago. So anyhow, yeah, if you like my silly stories and you want more, you just please comment, rate, and subscribe. Leave a comment, because I like comments. I try to answer the good ones, you know, repetitive ones I don't bother with. But don't forget, OneLonelyFarmer.com. Check it out. There's really good quality clothing there. Yes, I know it's a little bit on the high dollar side, but when you get it, you will be absolutely 100% satisfied, I guarantee it. So anyways, thanks for watching.